Hi, it's Charlie Angus. I'm here in beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland, doing work with the resistance. But I wanted to take some time to respond to some news that's come out, because I think one of the things we haven't really spoken about in terms of the threat posed by MAGA, the threat to our democracy, the threat to rule of law, the authoritarian gangster nature of MAGA, but we haven't talked about the threat to our children. The threat from disinformation and the drive of the extreme right to create disinformation, particularly about children's vaccinations. I say this because the news has come out that the province of Alberta, under MAGA Premier Daniel Smith, now has more measles cases confirmed than in all the United States put together. The United States has 70 times the population of Alberta. This is no accident. We know that MAGA has continually promoted the disinformation and fears of vaccines, and certainly Danielle Smith, former right-wing radio talk show host, has been doing her part. I want to talk a bit about what's happened in the United States with the MAGA threat against vaccination confidence and what's happening in Canada. Certainly the biggest threat right now to public health is from Donald Trump's nomination of Robert Kennedy Jr. Kennedy Jr., who's known as one of the disinformation dozen for being one of the largest spreaders of medical disinformation online and in the world, a man who has been militant in undermining medical science. He is now in charge of science and health in the United States. We know that DOGE has fired thousands of medical workers and medical researchers. And just recently, Kennedy has fired the vaccine advisory panel at the Centers for Disease Control. The CDC is the front line. They're the global health standard that the rest of the world follows. If we do not have the CDC to trust, where are we going to go to make sure that we've got accurate information on vaccines? Kennedy Jr. Has played a particularly nefarious role with the issue of measles. Now, measles, let's talk about what this kind of disease is. This is the perfect child predator. It was completely eradicated in Canada in 1998 thanks to strong vaccination programs. But measles is an RNA genome, and it only attacks humans. It doesn't look for any other animal, and it particularly targets children. It is such a good hunter is that it hides in the lungs of children with no sign. So by the time you recognize some sniffles, some runny nose, some eye problems, it's been in the child's lung for 10 or 12 days, replicating billions of times. They say that in a classroom, if a child starts to develop the rash, by the measles will have been in the class since Tuesday, and 27 out of 30 children can get infected. Some die, some are blinded, some are severely weakened. But there's another element of the measles disease that is really frightening. It's called the measles shadow. What it means is that it actually wipes the immunity memory from the body, so that those who suffer from measles are susceptible to other infections and illnesses for years to come. Some never quite get over it. Now, Kennedy Jr. claimed that the vaccines that were being used on measles was like the Nazi Holocaust. He then went to Samoa in 2019, where he talked about a natural experiment of just giving vaccinations a pause. Thousands got sick, over 80 children died. In 2022, he was back to claiming that the vaccine mandates that were being brought in to try and protect people from COVID was the equivalent of the Nazi attack on rights. So this is the man that Donald Trump has put in charge of handling public safety. Where we go from here will mean many, many children will die because of increasing vaccine disinformation. Now let's go to MAGA Alberta, where as the measles outbreak was spreading, particularly in the southern part with some of the religious groups and the larger and larger numbers of unvaccinated conspiracy people. Daniel Smith announced that there will be no more public funding for seniors for the next level of the COVID vaccine. We offer the flu booster shots. We offer vaccinations as public health in Canada. You don't have to pay for them. These are considered good public health. And Alberta had some of the highest public health standards, certainly during the COVID pandemic. But what Daniel Smith is saying is that, well, you can't really trust the vaccines, and if you want to trust them, well, pay out of your own pocket. It's a personal choice. You could get horse dewormer, ivermectin, or you could get a vaccine. This kind of disinformation and undermining of vaccinations as the measles epidemic has spread in Alberta has created a serious problem. I'm mentioning this because now we see that the conservative MAGA machine, Pierre Poilievre's machine, is out there trying to spread the blame away from themselves. Pierre Poilievre ran in the last parliament trying to make the ability of government to establish vaccine mandates illegal. We know that many of the Conservatives have promoted open disinformation in the House of Commons. And this week, Michelle Garner-Rempel from Calgary blamed Justin Trudeau for Alberta's measles outbreak. Yeah, she blamed Justin Trudeau. She said that Justin Trudeau, quote, dined out on making people afraid and blaming people and calling them anti-vaxxers. Well, if you don't believe that vaccines protect people, then you are an anti-vaxxer. So what does this mean? Right now, we have a serious health crisis, and it is a crisis of medical stupidity and conspiracy. Alberta had some of the highest rates in the world of vaccinations. Back just 20 years ago, up close to 95% of the population was vaccinated. They've lost about 24% less now because of disinformation. And it's not anything good to say about the rest of MAGA Canada with Doug Ford on his watch, where we've now watched about a 20% drop in vaccination rates. These are very, very serious numbers. And kids are going to die. And having disinformation and having right-wing politicians exploiting and promoting fear is putting our children at risk. The biggest threat we're facing right now from MAGA and from MAGA Maple is the threat to our children through the promotion of false, bogus, extremist, conspiracy-driven, anti-vaccination ideas, and children will be sick. And I'm just going to end on this. Robert Kennedy Jr., when he went to handle the measles epidemic that he's supposed to be looking out for, and he said, well, back when I was a kid, 2 million kids got infected with measles every year, and nobody spoke about it. Well, yeah, it's because they didn't have a vaccine, Robert Kennedy Jr. But out of that, about 480 kids died every year, 1,000 seriously impacted, 48,000 hospitalized. So is that the price of freedom? That we're going to let 480 or 500 or 1,000 kids die every year? So a few MAGA extremists can exploit the stupidity of the right wing, who would rather send their kids into schools and send their kids into crowds unvaccinated and spreading diseases like measles. And hey, final word, polio's back. Yeah, polio in the United States. This is where we're at right now. We have to call out the disinformation. We have to call out MAGA. We have to call out MAGA Maple, and we have to protect our children. I'm Charlie Angus.